So give me 1 minute while I do the screen share so that you can see my PowerPoint. All right. Well, welcome to supported decision making. This is viewed as an alternative to guardianship, and I want to share that my presentation has been put together from work that the ARC Oregon has done through grants, particularly from the National Resource Center for Supported Decision Making and the United Way of Mid-Willamette Valley. So they have helped in previous reiterations get this information prepped and ready for you with us. So hello. And so as Janet said, my name's Emily Brayman. I am with the ARC Oregon, and I am the program director for their Guardianship, Advocacy, and Planning Services program. Sorry, it's a mouthful I sometimes stumble on. And at the ARC, so we operate in and do guardianship. We also help families advocate and plan for the future of their loved one. We also are the ones who run the Oregon Special Needs Trust. And we do a lot of trainings for parents and professionals around topics important to individuals and families, or individuals who experience developmental disabilities and their families. Again, want to reiterate what Janet said about if you have a question that you would like me to answer, please make sure to enter it in the Q&A button as I'm going through, and we will get to those at the end of the presentation. And one thing I like to share with folks about my why and why I do this is I'm very passionate about making sure parents have the information they need to make informed decisions and choices for their child. I also am a parent of a child who experiences developmental disability and frequently run across other parents that just don't have the information they need to move forward. A lot of times, particularly in terms of turning 18 and how supporting an adult looks different from supporting a child. One other caveat is I am not an attorney, so information I'm sharing with you is what I have learned throughout my experience. It is not from the perspective of an attorney. So let's delve in. Our objectives for tonight, I'm gonna help you to understand the values and principles behind supported decision-making. I'm gonna give you some tools and resources to work with your adult child to establish supported decision-making supports. And we'll go over what the basics of a supported decision-making, what supported decision-making agreements are as we go forth. So those are our objectives for the night. Hopefully when you leave, you will have more understanding of each of those and some hands-on tools that you can utilize to help your either soon to be adult child or already adult child be more successful, especially in the area of decision-making as they go about their adult life. So really quickly, I wanted to do an activity just to get your brains thinking. You don't have to type in the chat if you want, but you can. So I want you to think about an upcoming decision that you're needing to make. And because, as Janet said, we're very conscious about confidentiality, make this a decision that doesn't give away protected health information or something like that. So along the buying a house, travel trailer, deciding to go on a vacation or not, what's the decision you're thinking about having to make? And then as you're thinking about that, imagine if you had to leave that decision to either a stranger or even a good friend of yours. And what kind of feelings come up when you think about handing over this big decision you're going to make to somebody else? So if you feel comfortable, you can type in the chat kind of what feelings came up for you about that. So I see one person was thinking about moving out of state. Someone said powerlessness, helpless. Those are pretty good words. Fearful, scary. I would not be comfortable giving my decision to someone else. You wouldn't have any choice, overwhelmed. These are all excellent. And it's something I want you to kind of think about, because when we think about supporting our adult child, and a lot of times the option provided to families is to get guardianship, Think about your child's response when someone else, even if it's you as mom and dad, are responsible for all their major decisions. So just something to get you thinking, to make you realize, how can I do this and support my adult child and help them feel invested and confident in the decisions and what's going on in their life. So, one, how did we get here? How did we get to a place where we're talking about alternatives to guardianship, where we're talking about supported decision making? And part of that is because our views and society's views of people with disabilities has changed significantly over the past 30, 40, 50 years. I found a study in a pediatric journal about the significant increase in lifespan for adults with Down syndrome. And a lot of it, Down syndrome has not changed over the years. Down syndrome was the same in 1940 as it is now, but our medical supports, our societal supports, our educational supports, all of those have changed to significantly impact people who experience Down syndrome and other developmental disabilities. So now we're here in a place where sometimes we realize guardianship might not be needed. So what is another way to help people make a decision? So that's kind of how we've come to this discussion about supported decision making and what are those next less restrictive options so that our loved one can be successful in life. The other reason we're here is a lot of you have kind of that looming deadline that your teen will be 18 at some point. And at that point, they are a legal adult and able to make the decisions for themselves. That kind of transfer of power goes from you as the parent to the adult child. And we're all here wanting to make sure that we set our kid up for success as much as possible. So we're here to learn about how can we support my adult child now that they can vote, practice the religion of their own choosing, make poor choices and experience the consequence of those along with some others. So at the age of 18, there's a lot of opportunities and challenges for all young adults. And we are here as parents, like I said, to set our kiddos up for success. One thing to think about is there may be family concerns about how to best support the person's self-determination in making these decisions, whether it's healthcare or financial. But hopefully through today, we can walk through some of those and help you see where your child's strengths in decision-making are and where maybe they need some help in learning that skill, because decision-making is a skill and a muscle, and we've got to flex it in order to know how to utilize it. So we're looking at supported decision-making as that alternative to guardianship. So we're kind of changing the conversation to focus on how we can support youth with decision-making instead of always just the how do I make it so I can continue to make those decisions for them. And it depends on your child, their abilities, their life situation as to which support for decision-making is best for them. My other part of this and other reason for sharing, as I said, is parents don't know what they don't know. I just talked to a mom yesterday who called me in a panic because she had assumed at 18 years old, since her child experienced significant disabilities, she would still be the one making the decision and signing the consents and being that person like we have as parents to take care of our child. Had no clue about the age of majority and steps that need to be taken at 18 to continue caring for her child and to continue for her child because of their significant needs to get guardianship to assure her child got the care that she needed. So I really like helping parents see the options that are out there. So one thing to think about with there's research out there, and it's from the National Resource Center for Supported Decision Making. If you look on my slide and see under the gentleman who's cooking, that is a great webpage to go to and look at to get more information and tools on supported decision making. But people with a greater sense of self-determination, which a lot of times is that control over their lives, able to make decisions, being listened to in the driver's seat of their life, tend to experience or have healthier lifestyles, be more independent, increased motivation, better jobs, and one that surprises a lot of people is better ability to recognize and resist abuse. And this is because a lot of times they've been taught and questioned about it and given skills around it. Some of these surprise people, but it's one of those things out there, and it's stuff we all want for our kids. We all want them to be healthier and more independent. So some data supporting helping our kids make decisions. Another one is people with intellectual and developmental disabilities who do not have a guardian are more likely to have a paid job, live independently, and have friends. Again, from the National Resource Center for Supported Decision Making. And one thing I wanted to share with you in regards to the state of Oregon and state of Oregon's rules around guardianship, because some of you may be thinking, well, I think guardianship might be what my child needs. Do I really need to understand about supported decision making and helping my child make decisions and build that skill? In Oregon state guardianship statute, even as a guardian, you are still to promote and protect the well-being of the person, and that guardianship is to be designed to encourage the development of self-reliance and independence. So this skill of being able to make decisions, knowing how your loved one makes those decisions and helping them to be able to make them is important, whether your child needs guardianship or not. Because as a guardian, you're still supposed to help them build those skills and become as independent as they can possibly be. All right, time for another activity because I'm trying to keep your brains going and not just listen to the drone of my voice. So wanting you again in the chat box, maybe type, I'm going to get rid of the small questions. So in the chat box, please type one decision, a bigger decision in life that you've made. So it's a decision you've already made. Who helped you? And we don't need names, but maybe mom, dad, friend, accountant. Who helped you? And what type of help did they provide you with? So an example of this would be, I went to buy a car and I called my dad because he's an accountant and he's into cars. So I could get information on what was the best deal financially and which car would meet my needs. So I'll give folks a minute to think about that and put in the chat box. What's one bigger decision you've made in life? Who helped you make that decision and what help did they provide? We have one, got a college degree, and someone called my BE. Is that best friend? I'm thinking. To buy a car, brother who's a mechanic. Excellent choice. Brother about refinancing a home. A spouse, supported decision and financial supports. Deciding where to go to college. My parents helped me research, weigh the pros and cons, figure out the financial. Changing careers. Buying a home, CPA and parents. Ooh, whether to continue the community transition program since it's online due to COVID, buying a house. These are all excellent. And one of the reasons I go through this is to help people see, one, we don't make decisions in a vacuum. We reach out to other people, we get information. And two, that we all use support to make decisions. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of our human nature. People, like this slide says, we had people talk about buying a home. Some people about choosing a school, taking a new job, getting the car fixed. Another support that a lot of us use that is a professional support is seeking that second opinion for a medical procedure. So this is one of those key concepts in supported decision-making to help us see that everybody uses support in making decisions, and it's not something special that we're trying to bestow upon our kiddos who experience disability. It is opening up supported decision-making as an option for them and giving it a bit of structure to make sure it works for our kiddos. Another part with that we all need help is this quote from Jonathan Martinez, who he works, well, you'll learn about him a little bit later with a lady who he helped. But needing assistance means you are a person, and asking for assistance means you're wise. So just kind of that, it's okay if we don't know everything, and it's okay to reach out for that support, and to know that you don't know everything. Another key concept in terms of support and how to support people is there is a continuum. Sometimes we need minimal support in making a decision. You know, for instance, what I'm going to eat in the morning for breakfast. I really don't need much support in that decision. It's what I'm feeling like that day. And other times we need full support. For instance, I've been, not that this is not true, but I've been sued by someone and I need the full support of an attorney and the paralegal and that whole system to help me. So it's this full support, and it can change. Your support needs, particularly the easiest one for a lot of us to understand, is around activities of daily living. Those needs can change from day to day or situation to situation. You need less support when you're healthy and feeling well than maybe when you've got the flu, or maybe you've had surgery and you're down and out and you need a lot of support. So it's this continuum of the right support based on your situation. Another way I've thought about this, about what's minimal assistance and somewhere you don't even think you need support with making a decision, but nowadays, because of the internet, we all do, is product reviews. You can hardly buy anything over the internet without having those 5 little stars and 3.5 or 4 of them lit up. That's supported decision-making. We are looking to say, is this a good product? What results have other people had? And if you're thinking you need more support, maybe it's a slightly bigger purchase, you can go read all of those reviews. But this is kind of a way that supported decision-making has been built in to a lot of the activities that we engage in on a daily basis. So again, depending on the person and the type of decision, this continuum can go from minimal support to that full assistance, hands-on, writing it down. It's all varying. And then the final one is, it's all about the right support at the right time. So if you think about this in terms of decision-making, like how is this the right support at the right time? Go back and think about learning to ride a bike. And at first you started maybe on a trike with the 3 wheels. And you were closer to the ground, so you weren't as fearful of falling. And then you went to the 2-wheel bike with the training wheels. And then you went to just the 2-wheel bike. And maybe as you got older and a bit more unsteady, you went back down a step like this gentleman to a trike again, so that you could feel safe. It's the same with decision-making. You need the right support at the right time. Rhetorical question, but who here has been given advice or the support when they haven't asked for it? And what did that end up making you feel like? When you've looked at someone, you're like, I was doing just fine. I didn't need that input. So it's about what is that right support at the right time so the person can be successful. It is also, and I said a little earlier, but want to delve into it a little bit more, is we don't make decisions in a vacuum without any information. We make decisions based on access to information. And so what does that, and we'll get into it more too, what does that access look like? My one example is a lot of us as parents have been through those questionnaires where they're like, does your child make appropriate decisions about weather appropriate clothes? And many of us have rolled our eyes and been like, oh no, I mean, my daughter just today decided it was shorts weather. Well, we're inside all day. We'll go with it today. But is the person making that choice about what to wear and what not to wear informed, or have they been given nothing? You or I will look at our phone. I used to, when I was a kid, the poor radio man, I remember calling the radio station in the morning asking for the weather report because I knew I needed that information in order to decide what to wear. So where maybe are those gaps in the information gathering for our kiddos that it's not that they can't make the decision, but we've never built up those building blocks for how to make the decision and how to get the information. All right, so we've gone through some of these thoughts and concepts about decision making, that we all need support. It's a continuum, it's at the right time. Now we're going to jump into the values and philosophies behind supported decision making and get into some tools that you can utilize. One thing I want to let you know about, and we don't have time for this video tonight, but there is a great video, and I forgot I didn't put the link on the screen, so I will send it to Janet, but there's an 8-minute video by the Delaware Division of Developmental Disabilities where families and individuals talk about the impact of supported decision-making and how it has helped them in life. So I will get that link. I apologize it's not there, to Janet for you all if you're interested in watching this, but it is 8 minutes long, and so I don't want to take that time here. So supported decision-making is when a person receives assistance from one or more trusted friends, family members, professionals, or we can call them supporters, to help them understand a situation or decision they face and to know the choices and options they have to make their own decision. So the values of supported decision-making are that the person has a right, the person's right to choose is presumed. The default is that the person has the right to choose. Also, that the person has full control and involvement. So it's not something that I as mom go and set up and get all in place and then hand to my adult child and say, here, this is how you're going to make decisions. The person is fully involved, and it is based on what their support needs are and what they want. The assistance is available when it's wanted and when it's needed. For instance, I don't need advice about buying a new car when I'm not looking to buy a new car. And that guardianship is used only when necessary, because sometimes guardianship is pursued before some of these other alternatives. Other key values that aren't listed on here within supported decision-making are autonomy and that it is person-centered. A little bit more on autonomy. Autonomy refers to the right of a person to make informed decisions about what happens to them. And it is so important that it has been addressed in some of the founding documents within our nation. So something to think about in terms of, we all value controlling our lives and making decisions about ours. So how can we help as many people as possible be able to make choices and decisions around their life? A bit of research on that. Making decisions is central to a person's autonomy and the essence of what is regarded as personhood, and is a crucial component to enabling an individual to have control over their life and engage in society. All right, now we're going to delve into the nuts and bolts more of supported decision-making. And for some of you, or all of you, if you want to put on a hat of either your adult or youth child that's about to turn 18, or someone you support around supported decision-making, to kind of think some of these things through based on a person that you know. One of the key things I love to reiterate is, again, the person is the decision maker. So when we start talking about if you're supporting someone and being a supporter in their decision making, that doesn't mean you as the supporter all of a sudden get to make the decision. Your role is to provide the person the information that they're needing and wanting in a way they can understand. And I'm moving something so I can see more of my notes. My apologies. And another thing to think about for parents is sometimes the decision the person makes, because they're the decision maker, may not be one you agree with. I'm pretty sure most of us have made those decisions that maybe a family member, a parent has not agreed with, but it was still our decision to make. And I'm not saying, or it doesn't mean that a person, that this can't be a learning opportunity. Decision making is always a learning opportunity for folks. Sorry, I had background noise that distracted me for a second. With the person as the decision maker, also remember about, and hopefully you've heard about, dignity of risk. And dignity of risk is that ability and that part of us as a family member or parent stepping back and allowing our loved one the opportunity to make decisions, to make choices, or engage in activities that might scare us, but that could be learning opportunities for them. Another part is to look at dignity of risk and realize that something that you think of as maybe good or bad, based on perspective, someone else might think of as the opposite. For instance, like a vegan diet versus standard. One side of that argument is going to say that choice is bad. Another is going to say good. But it's the person's own perspective that gets to make that choice. And with the learning opportunity, how many of us as parents had a child who made a mistake and asked them, what did you learn by that? Mistakes and bad choices are a great place for learning opportunities. And if we don't give kids a chance to do that, we don't give them a chance to learn from them and to grow from them. And I do understand and get that some of this is a great balancing act that we have to do. And it's based on each individual child, because we don't want to let them make a decision, try an action that's so much to the point where something really bad could happen. So you have to, as the parent, make your own assessment on, is this somewhere where I can step back and support my child, but let them do the activity or make the decision. And depending on how it goes, I can support them from learning from it. This I'm not going to go through, but it's some thinking points on when tough decisions are coming up. And you have it in your packet or the resources. I've sent it in the PDF for Janet to share. Stuff to think about, like when you're thinking of that dignity of risk and letting a kiddo make a decision, or when you're thinking about, is this a decision my loved one can make? These are questions to look through, and depending on your answers would be the steps you would take of, you know what? That is a decision I think that they could make. I would love to support them on that. And we could support them if it doesn't quite go right. So this is kind of a list of questions for you to have in your back pocket and review. All right, so we've gone through some of the concepts, we've gone through the values, and now we're getting to what I really call more of the meat of supported decision making. So we're going to help you here to identify where your adult child maybe needs supports, and to start looking at what are those ways that your adult child or youth makes decisions already that you can help strengthen or get down in writing so that everybody can understand them and help support them. So first, I want to introduce you to Jenny Hatch. Jenny Hatch lived independently as her own guardian, was her own guardian for many years. She got ill and needed the support of a guardianship to navigate that illness. And then after the illness, wanted to go back to being her own guardian, and it was contested, but she won the ability to get rid of her guardianship with supported decision-making as the alternative. So she had some supporters that she knew who could support her, and they wrote up an agreement on how decisions were going to be made and how she'd be supported. And if you remember Jonathan Martinez, who I commented on in the slide with the owl, he was her attorney who helped her to get to this place where she was her own guardian again with supported decision-making as that alternative. So if you want to know more about her, her story is on the internet, and you can look up Margaret Jenny Hatch or Jonathan Martinez. So the components of supported decision-making, we're going to go through some different building blocks. We're going to talk about supporters. We're going to talk about the role of communication, the role of the decision-making environment, multiple methods for supporting decision-making, and then some tools that are like checklists that you as a parent can go through with your youth or adult child and or your significant other to really look at what is the best level of support for our adult child. So first, in supported decision-making, who is that supporter and what is their role? So the supporters are those people that help the person, so your youth or loved one, gather the information, process the information, get different points of view on whatever decision they're going to make in a way they can understand. So these supporters, it could be family or friends, it could be a teacher, a coach, maybe it's the service coordinator. So it can be any person that your youth or young adult knows that they want to help them. Another key aspect of this is it can be a different person depending on the decision. Kind of like when we chatted before about a big decision you made, and some folks were like, I went to my brother because he's a mechanic, so he's the decision helper for a car. And like I'd go to my dad for the car for financial. I'd go to my stepmom for medical decisions because she's a retired pediatrician. So helping your youth or young adult figure out who those supporters are, who the people they are that they have around them that they could ask for this help for. Some good characteristics of that supporter would be someone the youth trusts, someone that honors the youth's right to make the decision, maybe someone who can provide the support that's requested and doesn't over support or under support, and respects the person's skills and abilities. So, help your youth or have your youth talk to you about who are their people in their lives that they can call on to help them, and then kind of match the person with the support they need. Again, based on that supporter's skills and understanding and maybe specialty, profession, and what that is. The next big area of supported decision-making and a building block to start putting things in place, besides just who the supporters are, is what is your youth's communication style? So identify how your youth best receives information. Do they receive it well through hearing it? Do they receive it well and understand it best when it's in writing? Do they receive information best when it's in video form and they can watch it over and over and take the information in again and again? Is it a social story where they read the steps and get the information? Do they have to experience it? So what is the way your youth best receives information so they can understand it to the best that they can understand? For me, it is not auditory. I tell people all the time, if you're talking to me and we make some decisions and you don't see me write it down, I am not liable for that conversation because that's not how I learn. I have to see it and write it. So how do they receive information? How does the person express information? Are they verbal? Do they talk? Do they use sign language? Do they use an augmentative communication device? Eye gaze? Blink once for yes, twice for no. How is it that your youth expresses information so they can tell someone what their decision is? And with that, then help your youth to access those communication supports and get it written down, because it's easier for people to follow and understand how to help someone if it's written down and we follow the same thing all the time, instead of the next person maybe having to re-identify it or not quite understanding. And then learn how the person makes decisions. And we'll get more into this when we talk about some specific methods for decision making and some specific options. And in particular, this next one, decision-making environment. The decision-making environment may sound a lot like person-centered thinking or person-centered planning to you, and it has a lot of similar contexts. But thinking about what is that, if you will, ideal environment for making a hard decision for your youth. For instance, do we make good decisions when we're hungry or thirsty, too hot, too cold? Not usually. Does your youth make a good decision, or are they able to concentrate when there's a lot of noise going on? Or do they need it quiet? Are they someone who needs to walk to process things, and so they pace? What are those things that best set up your youth to make a good decision and to be in a place where they can pay attention to that? If you think about this, hospitals will do this a lot too. When a family needs to make a medical decision, or when an individual does, they won't talk to you in the big waiting room at the hospital. They pull you into the little room in the side so that there's less distractions. It's more comfortable, and the family can be close and talk and meet one-on-one with the doctor. So what is that environment, or what are those environmental factors that would impact your youth's ability to make decision? My example for me is, I don't make any decisions except for to go to bed after about 7 at night. My body and my brain are done with the ability to think and to process and to come up with meaningful reactions. I'm sometimes amazed that I can do presentations that go past 7 because I get a little tired. And my kids know it. They'll come at me and I'm like, you know what? We need to talk about this in the morning when mom has her full brain ready. So maybe for your youth, they're rearing to go in the morning. And in the morning, right after they've had breakfast, sitting in a comfy chair is the best time for them to look at this. Or like my one daughter, she would prefer all of these hard conversations and decisions at like 11 at night. She and I are very different. But what is it for your youth? And then another one, like I said, within the communication, is how and what helps your child think through their decision. Is it having a one-on-one chat with some other people? One example I like to give to relate to a lot of people so they see, is it going to visit and observe somewhere? If you think about this in terms of when a woman is pregnant and about to give birth, a lot of times she and her significant other will visit the hospital and do a walkthrough to see how to check in, the room where they're going to go, the room where the baby will go afterwards if the baby doesn't stay with them, so that when they are calm and able to take in all this information, they can learn the process and see the environment where it's going to happen, so that when it's time for baby to come, mom is calmer. It's the same for your kiddo. Maybe your kiddo needs to do that. I've done it with one of mine. I wanted her to move from the high support dental down to, the dentist down the street. And so one time when her sister went to that dentist, I called ahead and I said, hey, she has a sister that really learns and benefits from seeing things ahead of time. Can her sister just come along and watch? I don't need you to do anything, but can sister just come along, see the location, see the chairs, see where x-rays are done, so that she can be a bit calmer and know what's happening. So is that how your child learns? Is it a list of pro and cons? And as I said before, is it one of those where they watch a video and can learn from the video and get the information they need? So trying to identify these kind of little pieces of the puzzle so that you can put them together or help your child put them together to know this is what I need to have happen so I can make a good decision about my life. I need these people involved. I need, I take my information in best when it's in written form. So if you can find it for me in written, I let people know my decision by talking. I need an environment that's quiet. I would like to have a cup of hot coffee while I'm doing it in a comfy chair. And then if you can have, if you can help me write a list of pros and cons so I can look over it a couple times. So those are some of those pieces in this building block of getting to supporting those decisions for your youth. And you can do this whether they're 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 16, 17, 18, and as they get older, because as I said, decision making is a skill and it's something we learn over time. So it can be started and focused on at any point, young to adult. So don't worry if they're 16 and it's not something you've ever focused on, you can start now. Or if they're 3 or 4, you can start now. It's a way of helping kiddos build an additional skill. I wanted to show you one kind of example going back to my question about, we've all had that question of, does our child make weather appropriate clothing choices? And that we don't make decisions in a vacuum. So this is something I've done with my daughter, is helped her learn where the weather app is on her phone, or my phone, because I won't give her one yet, I'm mean. But she can go on there and she can look, and she reads and understands numbers, so she can see the 3-8, and then she can go and look at the little chart that she helped me make about, oh, it's 3-8. These are the clothes that would probably be best to keep me warm. And from there, she has free choice to wear the pink shirt, the purple shirt, and all that. But it starts her learning how to go get some information and then how to use that information to make the choice just about her clothes. So I know this isn't a big life decision about a medical procedure or buying a house or where to live when you're 24, but it's a way to start that thinking about, how do I help my young one based on their abilities access the information they need and then utilize that to make choices about their day. All right, so next steps. You've kind of gone through and looked at the different components. We've chatted about the communication style, the environment, supporters. One thing I want to say again is, besides practicing, write it down so that you have it as record, so that you could show it to the school, you could show it to a new personal support worker or direct support professional if they come in and say, as you're working with Jimmy, we're really working on some ability to make decisions. This is how it works best for him. So have that written down. And now we're going to look at some direct tools for either identifying where your child might have areas for improvement on decision making and some maybe decision types you haven't thought of, as well as how to write this information down in order to support your child moving forward. So my first example with this is, if you go to Helen Sanderson and Associates, you'll see it down the little bottom corner, or you could create your own, but they have some basic decision-making kind of profiles. And if you look, it draws out some of the information that we've directly just talked about. How do I like to get information? How to present choices to me? Ways you can help me understand. So these are some just sheets that you could utilize to put down the information that you've learned about your child, and that you and your child can use to brainstorm about, like the second one, how does your child want to be involved in their decisions? Another one that you can have access to that's available on the web is this tool for exploring decision-making supports. It's through Charting the Life course, and it helps you go through multiple areas of life with your child and say, can they make this decision with no support? Do I need help with this decision? Or do I feel best that somebody else make this decision? And besides being used just for identifying with your young adult, I have heard of one family who used this as a discussion and a way to mediate a conversation between a mother and a father who had different ideas on the level of decision-making support that their youth was going to need. One of the parties felt that supported decision-making and helping their adult child learn how to make the decisions and make them would work. And the other one felt that guardianship was really what was needed. And based on going through the tool, it's a couple pages long, and identifying where the kiddo could make choices and where they needed help, and having that discussion, the family was able to come to an agreement about which support would work best for their kiddo. So kind of has a couple different uses there. But if you go on internet and type tool for exploring decision-making supports, this will pop up. Another one that's similar and actually based off of this same tool, but was revamped, is this Stop, Look, and Listen tool. It was revamped by a group that was working with transition teachers out in South Carolina about helping teachers identify where a student had strength in a decision-making and a skill, and where they might need to have some opportunities to learn that. And then it could directly relate into how to create some goals on the IEP around decision-making. Because part of the role of the individual education plan and community transition programs is to help kiddos learn for independent living. And making decisions and self-directing your life is a skill needed for independent living. So this is something that can be identified and worked on within the IEP. And this tool, actually, when you get to the second or third page, has some guidance for teachers about how to take what they've gotten from the tool and look at getting it on IEPs. So that's a great one if you're really working with your school and want to address this more than just you and mom, or mom and dad, or other caregivers at home. Another tool to look through, or one to talk, I know this says it's a tool for lawyers, but it's a guide for lawyers and can be for you and me. It's free on the web to look at for steps in supported decision-making. So in the state of Oregon, prior to a petition being submitted for guardianship, and part of that petition has to be what lesser restrictive alternatives were attempted and why they didn't work, and guardianship is the level of support that's needed. So this guide is one that you can access and look through to see what those alternatives will be and what an attorney will be looking at. But it also can just be for you to kind of look at, does my child need guardianship based on the answers to this, or can we support them? So the practical is actually an acronym, and the P, I'm not going to go through them all, but the P stands for presume guardianship is not needed. So starting from that place of how can we support this youth without guardianship? The R is for reason. So clearly identify the reason for concern or the reason for needing a decision-making support. And the rest of the letters go through some others. The other one I have written down is identify. And it says identify the abilities with the areas of strength and limitations in decision-making. So it's kind of some step-by-step things for you to walk through and think about in terms of what is that level of support that's going to work for my young one. Well, we are going to end up, one thing to let you know, with quite a bit of time for questions. I apparently have been talking very fast, so I apologize if I was too fast and you're going to need clarification. But we will just, have a good amount of time for questions. So we've talked about what are those components of supported decision-making. We've talked about those values of self-determination, and the person is in control of the decisions, and decisions are when the person wants them. We've talked about some of the research around self-determination and making choices. And now we get to a place where supported decision-making goes from a way you help your youth make some decisions, you help them grow their abilities, to putting the pieces together for it to be what's called a supported decision-making agreement. So like when we talked about Jenny Hatch, she had a supported decision-making agreement that was a written document about how she would be supported in making decisions around her life. So there are great examples of pre-made up agreements at the National Resource Center for Supported Decision-Making. So if you're wanting to go and look at some examples from across the nation, that's a great place. But I've kind of written out here, what are those basic components that are needed to write up and have available for supported decision-making agreement? So the basics are, who is engaged in this? Who is the person that needs the support or wants the support? And who are the supporters? So identifying those people and their role. What support is needed? Like we talked about, is it they're only wanting or needing support around medical decisions? Or what support is it in terms of they are wanting printed documents for themselves to read, or they're wanting someone to set up for them to go observe maybe the procedure or the process at the hospital? So what are those supports? What is the decision-making environment? Those are the whats. And then when is this person wanting support? When they ask for it, when they have a decision coming up? Because some people may say, I'd like to check in every week or two. And some may be, I'll call you when I need help. So what is that when? And then again, the how. How is it best, sorry, tongue-tied. How is it best to support me? And then you need to show that there's agreement by both parties. So one, that the person actually wants Sarah Smith's help, and that Sarah Smith is willing to act as a supporter. Because say I'm deciding I want some support and I want some help, and I just write down, yeah, I want my second cousin on my mom's side to help me. She has to agree. She can say, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that. So making sure both parties are in agreement. And then some supported decision-making agreements have a place for witnesses or notary. You can look at the various examples on there that are actually at the Resource Center. I also did send, and I'm thinking because we have a little extra time, I'll bring it up. I sent a resource provided by the ARC-US about making my own medical decisions a letter for my doctor. And it is a template that you can access. Like I said, it's a resource that's going to be sent out by Janet that outlines basically supported decision-making in for a medical decision in the format of a letter that you and your youth can go through and fill out and then provide to a doctor if you're choosing to use supported decision-making for medical decisions. So I will bring that up in just a moment, since we're going to have a little extra time. And one thing that I like to talk about in terms of Oregon and people wondering is supported decision-making a thing in Oregon? Is it, I don't want to say legal, because we all use supported decision-making, as we talked about at the beginning, reaching out to mom, dad, sister, brother, a neighbor to help make the supported decision-making. However, what it's not right now in the state of Oregon is it's not in statute that as an alternative to guardianship. So what that means, a professional could question your youth's ability or capacity to make the decision that's at hand. And that's why I say it's best to have this written out in a written form, because if you have it written out that, you know, my son is Johnny, and we have talked about this is how he makes decisions. He gets his information this way. We've provided him with this. He did a list of pros and cons. This is how the decision was come to. Then that professional can see how the decision was made and established versus for when or if they question it. Once it goes into statute, then there will be more to stand on to make professionals who question it honor the actual agreement. And we are currently, my understanding is it is going to the legislature this year to try and get statute behind support decision-making. So I kind of like to put that out there for folks to know. Before I get to questions, because like I said, I was on a roll tonight, I wanted to quickly see if I could find that resource I just talked about to kind of show you what one looks like. So if you will bear with me, I'm almost there, come on. All right, so if I stop that share and start this one. Oh, wait. Okay.
I have it if you'd like me to share it.
I've got it now, thank you. I just almost pushed leave instead of share. Oh, this is what happens when you add something right at the end. So this, as I said, will be provided by Janet. It is at the ARCS Center for Future Planning, but it's making my own healthcare decisions for people with disabilities. So it has instructions here about the letter and how to go. But if you look, it does say it can be used as a supported decision-making agreement. But I'm going to get down to this part of, and so you can put today's date, dear the healthcare provider, and I'm explaining to you how I make decisions. And what the instructions say is that you can cross off the ones of these that don't work for you and leave the ones that do. So this is a way, again, to show, for your youth to show that I'm getting help getting the information, and that the choice I'm making is based on getting information, not just me, oh yeah, I think I'll decide to do this or I won't. So it outlines some steps that can be taken to support. It talks about, you know, that kind of decision-making environment or space for your body about upset, worried, or confused. Lets the doctor know what you may look like when you're in that space so that they know you're going to need a little extra time to make the decisions. Talking about how to help them access their supporter or maybe change the appointment to make the decision. And then down here, it talks about who my supporters are and what type of help I want them to provide me. And also what the supporter can't do. And then it gives names in case you want 2 supporters, and it says you can add more. And if you have a healthcare attorney or healthcare power of attorney or an emergency. So this is kind of one of those examples where it starts to put those pieces together of, this is the steps I need for making my decision. These are my supporters for making my decision. And here is my signature that it's the decision I have made, or this is my agreement. And again, the supporter agreeing to be part of the decision-making for that person. So that's one example. And like I said, there are examples of supported decision-making agreements on that National Resource Center webpage. So stop that one, go back to this one. Sorry, getting towards the end, my throat is getting dry. So I'm just astonished I'm done so fast. I thought I was gonna go way over, but that leaves us some time for some good questions. And again, just wanted to let you know that part of this curriculum development was done through grants that we got from folks. And you'll see right there my contact information if you have any follow-up questions after this that you're wanting to engage in. And with that, I will leave that up for a minute. So if people want to copy it down, they can. And then from there, Janet, I guess you can ask me questions.